national movement that we've ignited out of the Durban conference in South Africa, dealing with the carbon emissions, and that's called Eco-Socialist Horizons. We have actually begun a socialist garden project in which we grow our own food as a part of trying to become self-sufficient and promote that. We are developing a black urban farmers market to distribute the food that we grow, but also other farmers grow. We have a Tai Chi program, and we have a wellness program. We have a group called the Raw Fight Club that was formed to promote a raw food diet. We have a study series that's addressing the topics of indigenous centrism, because we believe that the best foundations of Marxism view that the most advanced society that ever existed on this planet, in terms of egalitarianism, in terms of the condition of women, in terms of the rights of children, and in terms of the rights of Mother Earth, were the indigenous peoples of North America, particularly the Iroquois. We also have come a long journey to adopt the position that we are for matriarchy, which is the opposite of patriarchy. And we are also eco-socialists in the sense that there can be no socialism or any social change or purported social change that does not put Mother Earth at the center and that subordinates humanity to Mother Earth. So I'm going to just kind of read some of the draft ideas of a manifesto that I've been working on, still a work in progress, a manifesto against manifest destiny Marxism. And the concept of manifest destiny developed during the 19th century when the ruling class in the United States, in the United States of America, nation state, basically wanted to present as self-evident, a priori, and inevitable not only its existence here in this part of the world, but its inevitable expansion to become the ruler, thank you, the ruler of the entire world. And so this idea of destiny, in other words, something to be a priori, something that will be inevitable, something that is an assumption that is supposed to be self-evident, those aspects of manifest destiny, regrettably, were adopted, expressed, and completely entrenched in all the manifestations, theoretical and practical, of Marxism during the 20th century. And so we need an exorcism of that manifest destiny, those manifest destiny qualities and characteristics. So here it is. It's in 10 points, and I'll elaborate each point and then talk a little bit about myself at the end. First, capitalism is the cancer for the planet. It is teratogenic, earth-killing. Cancer is the social and environmental toxicity of capitalism for the individual human being. There is a mistaken assumption that cancer is a disease. A disease is something that can be cured. Cancer is incurable and never will be cured as long as capitalism exists. Why is that? Because capitalism and cancer are the same thing. They are both accelerative malignant processes, and you cannot cure a process. You can only end it, but it can't be cured. Capitalism was an accelerative malignant process that began a while ago. but it really took off about 500 years ago. In 1492, it is an interesting marker because it basically brings to a part of the world that was pretty much self-sufficient, pretty much didn't need it, and pretty much lived in a very ecocentric way with nature. And it was by the plunder, exploitation, and expansion in this part of the world that it took on this accelerative malignant process in the sense that it became unstoppable. The wealth that it secured from this part of the world enabled it to basically conquer and subdue the rest of the world. And violence was a big part of it. But not just physical violence, a cellular transformation, a violence that was rested at the molecular level in terms of species extinction, in terms of changing forever the landscape, the geological landscape of this part of the world, and basically entrenching a toxicity, sociological and biological, that's going to be very, very hard to remove and correct. Cancer is a manifestation of that entrenched toxicity, particularly with the massive rise of industrialism 200 years ago. So cancer rates have skyrocketed, particularly in the most affluent societies, and I'll talk about that in a minute. 2, native society prior to white Euro-settler colonialism was quintessentially communist. That is, it was matriarchal, it was egalitarian, and ecocentric, and more advanced, and therefore did not need capitalism. The introduction of capitalism was the biological and sociological genocide against humans and the ecology. 3, there is nothing better about capitalist society and its commodification and massification imperatives. It destroys, alienates, and toxifies. The presumption of manifest destiny Marxism was that capitalism was somehow progressive because of its huge productive capacity, its capacity for efficiency, and so forth. But I would maintain and contend that it was not productive, it was actually destructive. And that destructive capacity takes place on so many different levels that we actually become the disease itself. 4, it is understandable that native peoples can't accept socialism as long as that socialism is techno-industrial centric, stratified, patriarchal, and authoritarian. However, a new socialism that is indigenous centric, ecocentric, and revolutionary, meaning innovative, experimental, and liberatory, is essential to replace capitalism thoroughly. The past can't be returned to, but we can avoid continuing the toxicities of manifest destiny Marxism. 5, manifest destiny Marxism is the plague of all 20th century manifestations of Marxism, and ironically, it is not Marxism. The free association of producers and a subsistence economy that meets needs and not wants and actualizes from each according to their abilities to each according to their needs is the ethos of the new revolutionary eco-socialism. By becoming a subsistence economy and rejecting accumulation, poverty and inequality can't exist. When all you're dealing with is not accumulation, the only thing you should accumulate is creativity, wisdom, and love. But the accumulation of anything, if that doesn't become the modus operandi of your society, your social system, then you have no inequality and you have no poverty. 6, there can be no cure for cancer as there is no singular cause, as it is part of the matrix of modern industrial capitalist existence. When we talked about a mode of production, we actually allowed ourselves to be vulgarized. We're really talking about a mode of existence, how we make ourselves. So we make a system that is toxic, then we toxify ourselves. So we look at our characters as human beings, and to our credit, those who can resist that toxification maintain any semblance of our humanity in terms of our ability to have compassion, the ability to have creativity, the ability to make sacrifice, those sorts of qualities, those are always damaged, and we're always forced into compromises. Whenever we have this scenario that's presented, you know, this versus jobs and income. To swallow the jobs and income proposition is to accept the matrix, and is accept your prolonged subordination and toxification, albeit perhaps in a stratified way. Some will do better than others, but it's an acceptance of that. 7, cancer and capitalism are the same accelerative malignant processes. That is why cancer rates and types are highest in the richest societies on this planet, societies with the allegedly most advanced medical technologies, and lowest among the so-called most primitive societies. 8, industrialism offers nothing, absolutely nothing better. To deindustrialize is what revolution must be about. Restoration of the commons, the elimination of money and the monetizing of value and worth, elimination of division of labor and alienation, elimination of gender and all forms of social divisions, for example, privileging mental over manual labor, etc., etc. 9, to fight cancer and capitalism, a cellular transformation must begin, which is what prefiguration is on the macro-social level, and what the deindustrialization of our bodies, water, and food sources, as well as our mental, psychological health must be about. Revolution is the only, finally, 10, revolution is the only solution, the only cure. Let me tell you a little bit about my story in the last 5 or 6 years. I was diagnosed, I think actually misdiagnosed, with advanced stage 3B colorectal cancer in August 4th of 2006. And basically I had to die on that day and recognize several things. One is, what was my own complicity in a carcinogenic life? And 2, what was environmental and social toxicity that I was a part of, in which I was collateral damage, which also included perhaps my genetic history. One of the things that I came to realize about my own complicity is the following. Ego was the principal toxicity, in the sense of myself as a male Asian American struggling in the music business, in the arts field, highly competitive, infected with a lot of the ambivalence and the uncertainty, and trying to basically walk a tightrope all the time, trying to make miracles every single second of the day, because you never got enough money, you never got enough access, you never had enough resources, and you had big ideas and big visions, and you were trying to make that happen. And so what I did to myself physically was resort to comfort foods. What were my comfort foods? Foods that were broiled, barbecued, and deep fried, and ice cream. Even though I was in great shape. I was in really good shape. I mean, I could do 100 push-ups on one arm, on each arm. I could swim 10 miles. But I was still toxifying myself, largely through high temperature cooked foods, because anything smoked or burnt is carcinogenic. There are only two natural carcinogens that we face since the beginning of time. That is fire, carbon, the inhalation of smoke, from incense, from smoking, from smoked meats, from meats that are cooked in fire and burned, and then the sun. But since industrialism, we have flooded ourselves and the earth with probably about 50,000 different carcinogens, according to the Center for Disease Control of the United States of America. About 50 different, you can find it where? In shampoo, in sunscreen, which is supposed to protect you from the sun, in toothpaste, in laundry detergent. You find it in the light bulbs here, in all electromagnetic radiation. I subscribe to the belief that the reason why we have such a rise in brain cancer today is because of cell phones and cell phone technology. The other thing is, another example of how modern industrial society has toxified our existence, is the role of plastic. Plastic didn't exist 60 or 70 years ago. Plastic is now ubiquitous. When you throw away plastic and it degrades, it becomes dioxin, one of the most lethal chemicals ever. And so where is the highest concentration of dioxin found today? No. In mother's breast milk. That's how far along the food chain it's gotten. So there is no cure for cancer because, according to Western medical science, there is no cause for it. Because the cause is the matrix itself that has been created and engendered primarily in the last 200 years, but it goes back 500 years. So for myself, elimination of ego, I'm about 98% there in terms of eliminating ego. I still have about 2% I have to work on. But that was one of the big things I had to do. Then, of course, I had to change everything. And my book, Diary of a Radical Cancer Warrior, traces in real time how I had to sort out these things. Because I was, even after chemotherapy, surgeries, et cetera, I still was getting it. And I still wasn't, I had not changed enough. So my latest book, Raw Extreme Manifesto, Change Your Body, Change Your Mind, Change the World by Spending Almost Nothing, is a method or a handbook in terms of what I've discovered as far as the benefits of going a raw food diet. Now, I advocate for a raw extreme diet for those who really want to deal head-on with diseases, and all diseases are curable. So let's look at the main diseases in American society, the diseases of affluence. Heart disease, obesity, diabetes, hypertension. All those are curable. All those are fixable. But the mainstream medical science wants to pharmacologicalize it by buying expensive medication, which aren't cures but have a plethora of side effects. So you watch the evening news, the network evening news, and you see all these drugs being pushed. But you notice that the commercial, most of the time on the commercial spent citing the side effects. But the raw extreme diet works. And I'll give you an example. I went raw extreme. I cut out all sugars, including fruits, dried fruits, fruit juices, carrots, beets, corn, and tomatoes, because those vegetables have high sugar content. And in 2.5 weeks, losing a pound a day, my blood pressure was 170 over 120. It became 120 over 80. In 1 month, it became 110 over 70. I have no more hypertension problems. After trying for 1.5 years of amlodipine, the commercial name being Norvasc, the main prescription drug used for hypertension, high blood pressure. A friend of mine is almost cured of diabetes, been lifelong diabetic. His parents died of diabetes when he was in his 40s. He's almost done with that. The numbers have gone to near almost perfect. In 6 months of not going extreme, because he still eats fruits and dried fruits and that sort of thing, but primarily going to a raw vegetable and fruit diet. Obesity. Well, I lost a pound a day. In 30 days, I lost 30 pounds. In 40 days, I lost 40 pounds. I had to change my clothes twice. I had to get my tailor to alter my clothes twice in that time. I stopped going extreme raw because I would continue to lose weight, and I kind of like I spent too much money changing my entire closet twice. And I also like the weight that I have now because I got to carry around a 25-pound baritone saxophone So I need that kind of bulk, if you will, to move that around. So I like where I'm at right now. I like all of my numbers. In fact, all of my numbers are great. But I still have not beat cancer. In fact, why I say my original diagnosis was incorrect is because I think that the diagnosis should have been stage 4 metastatic, because it's clear that in 4 years there were 4 tumors. Now in year 5.5 there are 6 tumors now spreading, one in my, growing right now, my right lung, the other one growing in my left groin. So metastatic stage 4 means terminal. If I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic colorectal cancer in 2006, 92% of the people who are diagnosed at stage 4 colorectal cancer die within 2 years. Those are the statistics in the United States. And after 6 years, it was 100%. So I'm making it to 6 years right now, even though I was led to believe I wasn't stage 4, but I believe actually I was. That's why the tumors keep coming back and now in different places. But I've gotten to that point of almost 6 years because of self-healing, of learning how to now question the orders from the mainstream medical establishment and coming up with my own methodologies. And the raw food is one of the most important ones, because most people die, the morbidity rate of those who've gone through the amount of surgeries, the amount of chemotherapies, and the radiation I've gone, I should have died a long time ago, but because I optimized, maximized my personal health, I was able to keep on going and recover fairly quickly from each of these onslaughts. I'll give you an idea of these onslaughts. I've had 10 surgeries. I've used every single chemotherapy drug twice made for colorectal cancer. I've had radiation, and I've used about 11 different alternative protocols, including something that's illegal. I think it's illegal in this state, I'm not sure, but it's illegal in most of the states, but 11 states in the United States, ozone treatment. I've used chaparral, Native American herb. I've done everything. I've done almost everything. So I'm aware of all these different alternative protocols and so forth. But the best prescription I ever had was given to me by the late Chairman Mao. He said, go work in the countryside. So I sent myself to the countryside and I worked on a farm. And here were the benefits that just changed my mind, changed my body in a short amount of time while working on a farm. 1, vitamin D from the sun. Very, very important. 2, breathing fresh air, oxygenation, very, very important. 3, drinking well water. Again, very important. Why well water? Because of the natural minerals in that water coming from the ground. What else? Eating organic food straight from the ground, even though this farm was not certified organic, and that's my problem with the food industrial complex. To be certified means spending a lot of money to go through these regulations and these annual inspections and so forth. You know, if you plant it right in your raised bed, that's organic. If you know what the soil content is, you create the soil by composting and worms, you know, it's organic, even though it's not certified organic. So eating the food straight from the ground meant higher, much greater nutritional density. So that's why I can't go to Ralph's or Whole Foods or Trader Joe's and buy their stuff, because it tastes so lousy. Because, you know, it's pulled out from the ground before it's ripe. It has to be shipped, you know, and I didn't really realize what a real tomato should taste like until I tasted the 40 different kinds of tomatoes we planted. And my mind was blown. You know, I said, this is how alienated we become. We don't even know what food should taste like anymore. You know, and the last thing was exercise, manual labor. The sedentary lifestyle that we have, you know, what is it? Children now spend an average of 8 hours a day in front of a monitor screen. That sedentary lifestyle is part of the disease of affluence. And, you know, that's responsible for obesity. So, and obesity is the #1 disease among young people from age 14 to 24. And it's more than just the food industrial complex limiting our choices and pushing what they want us to have. It's more than that. You know, again, one of our manifest destiny Marxism things is to blame the system, but we're implicated in it as well. You know, because we have allowed our existence, our existence has been changed. We have allowed ourselves to compromise with it. So for example, in my Raw Extreme Manifesto, I talk about all the psychological things you need to do to mount up that strength to resist. So I don't accept the word trying. Trying is lying. When someone says, I'm going to try, right. The other thing is, you have to beat yourself up and put yourself through a psychological boot camp. So I developed a method of self-contempt for myself. And what's the biggest insult you could say to me? Call me a compromiser. So anytime I felt seduced, I would say to myself, Fred, you MF compromiser. And the third thing is to reject what's being offered. So if you're with friends and they want to, go to the salad bar and get what they want to get, all I said to myself, I don't judge my friends, but all I said to myself, do you really want that industrial crap? That's how I described it, industrial crap. And these were the psychological devices I had for myself. So to this day now, everything has changed. So I won't accept anything but this standard of food. I just won't. And that's why in my apartment in New York City, my gas for the stove and oven are permanently turned off. No compromise. No compromise. Those are the first two rules of the Raw Fight Club. Number 1, no compromise. Number 2, no compromise. If you compromise, then you're kicked out. So the thing that I've learned also is that you have to admit your own weaknesses. And cataloging those weaknesses is the first step in preparing how to become a serious warrior. That's why in stratified hierarchical military, they basically destroy your ego, your sense of individuality, so that you can become, for them, they want you to become part of a team or a collective, but someone that's willing to take orders. What we have to do is put ourselves through a boot camp in which we become no compromising, but ultra creative. We had to become like gorillas in a lot of ways. And the destruction of ego, I think, is the most important thing and probably one of the greatest toxicities that continues in our movement. Because there's so little reward, in terms of material or status conferment, that you wonder why someone continues to be an egomaniac. And that's because they pretty much enjoy that very limited fulfillment from their own egotistical gratification. I don't know if I quite explained that quite right. Meaning that even though the system will tell you you're wrong, if you think you're right and you feed on that and don't have the ability to make ruthless criticism, self-criticism of yourself, the system actually wins, because you're not able to make the transformation necessary, like a gorilla, to take on whatever new challenges come forward. All you have is a bag of formulas that you pull out, and that's how you maintain your centeredness, if you will. So the destruction of ego, I think, is very, very critical and crucial. And the three things happened. Well, three things happened to me in this cancer war that pushed me to finally get rid of all ego. And that is death. Deciding to kill the old Fred Ho, deciding never to go back to the life that I had before, and also trying to take my own life 3 times. Each time it happened, it was under tremendous amount of pain. And you have to go to hell to find your own maker, to find your maker. You have to go to hell. God is not in heaven. Your maker actually is in hell, because then you confront everything that is poison and self-destructive about yourself. And the challenge is to get out of hell. But you know, if you haven't completed your mission, you keep going back to hell. And so I went to hell 3 times. The first time I was cut open, and the surgeon didn't sew me back up again because I had so much scar tissue. He went to speak at a conference the next day and didn't tell me. So I was released. I went home. I was in searing pain from any movement. For 12 days and nights, I couldn't sleep. That's torture. And I wanted to end it. Okay, that was the first time. Second time was when I was constantly vomiting and had massive amount of diarrhea, and I was going to the toilet something like 40 times a day. And that was going on for days. And I wanted to end it. And the last time was actually after doing the raw extreme, being optimized, looking great, feeling great, but then all of a sudden going down the precipice. And April 1st, I'll always remember that day, April 1st, 2011, everything dropped. I was feeling so weak, tired, it's like the very life energy being taken out of you. I was in bed 23 out of 24 hours a day. I had arranged for a couple of comrades who have specialty in the biological sciences in scientific soul sessions to bring me some poison, basically. And I instructed them that I wanted the poison, and I was going to take my own life because I, for 16 days, was going into this vortex. And they refused to honor that agreement that we had made. And they said to me, you have to go back under the knife again. You know, as long as we can still take this out locally, you should do it. And so I lost 3 organs from that. I lost my bladder, I lost my prostate, and I lost my rectum. So I have a colostomy bag and a urostomy bag. They also had to take sizable amount of muscle and skin from my thighs, left and right thighs, in order to fill up those spaces that those organs taken out had created, because when you have empty space in your body, it fills up with liquid and then you get massive infections. You know, and I had that. I had an infection one time that lasted 10 days at 105.8. At 106, your brain boils and you're dead. So I was 105.8. And luckily, my general, Auntie Green, came by in the hospital, and I had begged the orderlies, bury me in ice, bury me in ice. And they wouldn't do it because they had no doctor's order to do it. So luckily, my friend Ann was there, and she found a garbage bag and filled it with ice from the ice machine and drowned me in ice, and my temperature started to come down. And also at that same time, I had inflamed intestines, meaning that from all these repeated surgeries, they cut me open one more time and my intestines ballooned up. So nothing could pass, no water, no liquid, no food. So for 26 days, I did not eat. I lost another 40 pounds. I was on IV food for 26 days, meaning I was being fed liquid nutrition intravenously. So those are the hells you go through to face your maker, you know, and if you're going to come back out of hell again, come back from it, you have no course other than, you know, decide if you're going to continue, and if you continue, you're going to continue truly living, meaning that every ounce of your breath, fulfill the mission that you have. So most of us aren't clear, what is our mission on this planet? Why are we here? These are very basic existential questions, and I've become clear. The reason why I have a few more extra days now is because the Maker said to me, you have not fulfilled your mission. And that mission is to do the music, art, and politics no one else can or will do. And that's why I'm here. I'd like to stop now and have my friends Eric, Robin, and Diane come up, and we'll have a conversation, and then you can have a conversation with all of us.